and welcome back to Specialness. It's been a while. In fact, it's been almost a year. So if you've stuck with us, thanks a lot. If you'll recall, in our last podcast, we had said we were on a short break because we were going to be getting into a new studio, which we have. But a couple other things happened along the way that caused the delay to be a little longer than we originally had projected. So
yeah, because we originally said, just a couple months.
Yeah. I think
a month or two, we'll be back at it in no time.
I think it was probably about a year ago, May, June, that we said, yeah, give us a couple months. We'll be in our new studio and then we'll fire back up. A few things happen, and we figure we'll just catch everyone up to date before we get back on track.
Right.
With some new content next week. But let's visit 2025 and what happened and how we got where we are.
Okay, so let's start. August comes around, end of August, and you and I were going to take a long 3-day weekend.
Well, this would have been our first vacation
Long
together
weekend.
in a couple years. Yeah. And that one was the first one in
like
6 or 7 years. Right. So again, it was a 72-hour getaway.
Right. And as other special needs parents know, getting away is hard. You have to find respite, all that kind of stuff. So we had planned this trip to Montana, and Jackson, our other son, was going to stay with Cason for the first time. Mm-hmm. And this particular Wednesday, we were going to leave Thursday morning. This particular Wednesday afternoon, I literally had just finished sitting down with Jackson and going over all the information that he needs. Not that he doesn't know it, because he does. He obviously has taken care of Cason and he knows all that stuff.
And that was just the cherry on top of all the stuff you had done for us to leave for 3 days anyway.
Right. And I'd already gotten all of Cason's medicine separate. I've done all that kind of stuff. And I literally had just gotten the guardianship papers out that we have for Cason. And I showed Jackson where I'm going to put him on the counter just in case he needs them. And I looked at him and I was like, you're not going to need these. Everything's going to be fine. But just in case, you need to have these.
Yeah.
And the phone rings.
Yeah.
And I answer it, and it was Jamie from My Possibilities calling to tell me that Cason has fallen. Mm-hmm. He has hurt his ankle, and that the ambulance is taking him to the hospital. Can you meet us up there?
At the emergency room.
And of course, I instantly think, oh, this must be a really bad sprain, because he has done that.
Pulls his ankles all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, there must be some kind of protocol or something that because he fell and they had to help him up, that they need to have an ambulance come. So I hurry, get all the stuff. I tell Jackson, Cason fell. I'll go into the hospital. I'll be back soon. And I get in the car and I call you, and you don't answer. You call me.
Well, I was on a conference call.
That's right.
With a client.
That's right.
Yeah, you texted, and I was like, okay, I excuse me, I have to just go make a quick call here. I'll be right back. I called you, and you said, well, Cason's at the emergency room. And I said, really? Why? Well, he just fell and hurt his ankle. And immediately I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm sure it's fine. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, selfishly, I'm ready to go to Montana.
Right. Me too.
It's going to be a little cooler weather. We're going to get a chance to just, be alone for a little while. So
we thought the same thing. It's just a sprain.
Yeah.
It's just a sprain.
I'm sure it's because, again, Cason has rolled his ankles forever. He's got those loose joints, and he can't feel the bottom of his feet anyway. So he twists his ankles all the time. Mm-hmm. And he can be pretty dramatic about it. So, I just figured it was that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said, okay, let me wrap a couple things up and I'll meet you at the hospital. Mm-hmm. Great. So I get to the hospital. I walk in. Cason had just arrived. I walk in the room and see him. And my first thought was, why is he so calm? Because if you have watched any of our podcasts, Cason is not good with stressful environments. He's not good with getting a tiny dab of blood on his finger.
I'll tell you, he has no pain tolerance.
Right. He freaks out over everything. And so when I walked in at first, I was like, oh, they must have given him some pain medicine. And so I asked, and they said, no, he hasn't had any pain medicine yet. And that's when I first started going, he's in shock. Something's not right.
Yeah.
And then they had just finished, like they had put his leg in an air cast and they just kind of opened that up. I took one look at it and I said, this is not a sprain. Like, this is bad. It looked horrible. His foot was dangling there. It was nasty. And I'm obviously going, well, we're not going to Montana. And I'm just going to wait for Jeff to get here.
Right.
So he can see it, because I'm not going to call him and be like, guess what? We're not going. So you finally get there.
I do get there.
You come in and see it. You're trying to talk yourself.
Well, I immediately go, okay, I think this is doable. Jackson could do anything we'd have to do.
Yeah.
It's just 3 days. It'll be all right. I mean, they're gonna put him in a cast, and
Yeah.
things happen. Well, and you're like, and you said, I don't know, and I was like, you just let me worry about that, because I don't want to not go. Right. So, well, it turns out
that he broke 2 bones.
Just all of it.
In his ankle. He destroyed his whole ankle.
Yeah, it was Dak Prescott level
injury.
Destruction.
Yeah.
And again, he was playing basketball, and he was
just planted his foot.
He just went back on defense, and he planted his foot, and it just shattered.
Yeah. Tore all the ligaments, tore all the tendons.
So as it turns out, there is going to be no cast, because he's going to need surgery.
Have a great orthopedic surgeon, tells us, obviously he definitely needs the surgery, and tells us kind of what the plan is. And we scheduled the surgery. Cason has the surgery. Well, we did not know, which we found out after he had surgery, and the surgeon came to talk to us and said everything went good and stuff, that he will be non-weight bearing for the next 2 months.
8 weeks is specifically what they said. Yes. Okay. 8 weeks.
If you have a neurotypical he was 23 at the time, neurotypical 23-year-old, you go, oh, that's not that big of a deal. He can use crutches. Or you've seen that little scooter thing that people put their leg on, and he can function. Mm-hmm. When you have a special needs child who already has neuropathy and can't feel his legs. Now, he felt this, but this is different, right? So his good leg, he can't feel. He doesn't have balance. He has no coordination, cannot use crutches.
Can't motor plan.
Can't do any of that stuff. It literally put a huge wrench into our lives and his lives, because we ended up having to do everything for him. And when I say everything, you can use your imagination to think about what we had to do for him. He is not a small guy. So our backs...
He's a hefty guy. Yeah.
We're not young people anymore. So we were hurting our backs because we're having to lift him. We're having to pull him. We're having to do all this kind of stuff. We ended up with all kinds of equipment. We had a lift. We had 2 wheelchairs. We had...
The other thing is he was dead weight.
Yeah.
Which was part of the problem, because with his coordination issues and stuff, he couldn't help us help him.
Right.
So literally, when we would lift him up, we were lifting him up. Right. And then we had to hold him up. It was, he was like a newborn foal.
Yeah.
He just could not
And he was
balance.
So unbelievably paranoid that he was going to accidentally put weight on it, because he had, obviously he knew he had just had surgery and that it was a really bad injury. But even a little bump on accident, he was like, oh, it's broken again. And he was just so
it didn't click with him that the damage was done.
He wasn't going to put weight on it.
Yeah.
And then we forgot about this part, that he had to elevate it 45 minutes out of every hour. So he can only have it down
for the next 2 months.
For the next 2 months, it was like this. So,
and that was after a week
of already doing that.
Because the swelling had to go down before they could do the surgery.
Right.
So it was really 9 weeks of no weight.
Of no weight.
Yeah.
Right. And
it led to the accumulation of a lot of equipment.
yeah. Like I said, we had 2 wheelchairs, we had a lift, we had shower chairs, we had walkers, we had urinals, we had pillows for him to sit on, pillows for him to put his foot up. I mean, we had it all.
How about the butt cushions?
You had the butt cushions.
Which we went through because, we got the circle pillow and it was not comfortable. Then we got one that was like a padded toilet seat. And then that one, he couldn't, we went through, I think it was the 4th one that he finally decided
it worked
for a period of time.
Right. Then we had to go back. We had to cycle through them all again and find another one. But so those 9 weeks were very hard.
Well, and that was the medication.
And I was just going to get to that.
Yeah.
Besides the physical aspect of this, what a lot of people don't realize is, if you've watched any of our other podcasts, Cason's on a tremendous amount of medication, most of which are psych meds. And he already has kind of a funky kidney and kidneys and funky liver, and it affects his heart. I mean, it's a whole thing. So we're already having to be very careful with
regular blood tests. And
and Mikey cannot take Advil because it interacts. And so he only can have Tylenol, stuff like that. So imagine when you go into an ER and they ask, what medicines is he on? And you go, oh, here's the list. And they kind of give you that look of, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So they ended up, obviously he was in tremendous pain. They ended up giving him morphine. And then they sent us home with, I don't even remember what the pain medicine was, but I'm instantly texting with,
Toradol?
That was later,
That's
texting with his psychiatrist. And I'm like, okay, this is what has happened. Can he take this pain medicine with this? And she was like, well, obviously he needs the pain medicine, but what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to lower all of these psych meds. And instantly, like, PTSD just came running back into my head. And because of, again, go watch some of the other podcasts that we did.
It had taken us years to get on the cocktail we were on that had him stable. And now we were being asked to take it all down a notch.
Right. And if you go back and watch the episode, we talk about what happened when he had lithium toxicity and he was hospitalized and he had 0 lithium. Instant aggression. He becomes not a fun person to be around. He can hit, throw, all kinds of stuff. So that was one of the main ones we had to lower for his safety, and we understand it. But I mean, it was just like everything was happening that wasn't good, right?
Well, I think the point was that we didn't have any choices.
Right.
It wasn't that it was good or bad or we didn't understand. It's just we didn't have a choice. And the consequences, we also didn't have a choice.
Right. So he ended up being on, for a while, this one kind of pain medicine. So we kept everything low. And then after surgery, he was on 2 different kinds of medicines that we had to still keep his psych meds low. And then eventually, they weaned him off of that big pain medicine. And then he was just taking the Toradol, which is a really strong, like, anti-inflammatory kind of thing. And so that one really interacted. So we had to keep him low still. And then once he weaned off of that, and this is over weeks, this isn't over just a couple days. Then they weaned him off of that. And they're like, okay, Advil, Tylenol, you have to rotate. Well, like I just said, Advil does not work with lithium. So we had to lower the lithium again, even more. And during these weeks, we see Cason getting more and more frustrated. And he had to do these exercises that the surgeon, had us do. We had to do those 3 times a day, and just trying to get Cason to do any of the activities, us touching his foot, helping him get dressed, anything would.
I mean, honestly, if you get, it was like there was like a halo around his ankle. If you got within 1.5 feet walking by any, he would scream out, like,
lose it.
Yeah.
He had 0 tolerance for anything. His frustration level was through the roof. His irritability was through the roof. We all were walking on eggshells. So again, like, our PTSD from years ago was through the roof. Jackson was like see ya. Like, not really, but he was like, he helped us a lot too, actually. But he was like, oh my gosh, this is bringing back so many memories. And so Cason stayed on this Tylenol Advil rotation for months.
Yeah. Well after the 9 weeks was over.
Well after the 9 weeks. So fast forward a little bit, he ended up being home from his day program for about 4 months. And
basically the rest of 2025.
Right.
Yeah.
So think about this. We were supposed to go get a nice little getaway the end of August, and it is now January. And
yeah, we had to get through the holidays with this too.
Yeah,
Thanksgiving,
everything.
Christmas. Yeah.
And it's just like our life just stopped. It just literally stood still and became extremely difficult. And so he started to go back to his day program. He used a walker. He only could last a couple hours because the pain and it swell, and so he'd have to come home. So again,
2.5 days. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to get back to having some sort of life, because during all these weeks prior, I mean, I was home with him all the time. You would go to the office and I'm his sole caretaker. I mean, we had some help with, parents and stuff, which was helpful, but the majority of the time it was me and him all day, all night, all the time, no breaks, and except on weekends, and then
bedtime.
And bedtime.
We were able to get him in bed. But we're not doing justice to how hard this was, because, unfortunately for this circumstance, we do have a second story. So getting up and down stairs was a production. Going to the bathroom that took 25 minutes, to orchestrate all that, whether he was using the little portable urinal, or later when he was able to kind of make his way to the bathroom. I mean, it was the equivalent of working, at a rehabilitation center for us, because everything required assistance.
Mm-hmm. And we need to specify, we're not used to that level of care with Cason.
That's a very good point.
He has never had those kind of situations. Now, granted, with his neuromuscular issues, yes, we have to help him, and until shower and stuff, until we got the special needs shower tub thing.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say it was the mental toll of it wasn't. The physicality of it was challenging, and I know other people can relate to that. But it was the being yelled at, and because he wasn't a good patient. It was a lot to deal with emotionally.
Yeah, it's a level of abuse, you can say. And again,
it's a level of abuse that we had dealt with
in the past
years ago,
right,
when we weren't on this cocktail.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would still, he still had to go see his regular other doctors. We see the surgeon, but people don't realize, Cason has a list, name a doctor, and he sees that doctor. So we were still having to get him out, still having to do stuff. And
blood tests.
Yeah, he still had to do the blood test. So his normal, quote, normal issues didn't stop.
Right.
We still had to deal with all that. This was just all on top of it.
And we didn't even get to the walker thing until...
Gosh, it was...
Well, it was after those 9 weeks. And when he could finally put some weight on it, he had the walker thing, which, he liked until he had to take it somewhere. And then he was embarrassed by it.
When people to see him, and then he would get mad at them. And then if they looked at him, he would hit something. And it was...
or if it banged into something, or, it didn't do... He couldn't make it do what he wanted it to do, that would frustrate him. So it was...
Then he'd hit himself or scratch himself, and we would have to touch him. He hates to be touched, so we would have to touch him to help him.
He would tell us to help him, and then have to hit himself and scratch himself.
Or try to hit us. I had scratches and stuff on me. And like I said, he's not a small guy.
Well, and, a throwback to a previous episode. He actually broke your foot once stepping on you because of his lack of coordination.
Right. So all that to say, it was a lot to deal with. We didn't sign up for it. We were excited to go to Montana and just get a little bit of a break. And it's kind of funny how things happen, but it just kind of reiterated, I think, to both you and I, and we say this a lot, and a lot of times we say it jokingly, but as special needs parents, you literally have to live like one day at a time. Sometimes it's like 1 minute at a time.
Man, I mean,
this wasn't on the radar.
well, not only that, it made me pine for August 17th.
Yeah.
When he could walk around and he was, stable for him. And we were accustomed to that. We were used to that. We had fell into a comfortable rut, I guess, that was predictable. Whether we were ecstatic to be living it or not is a totally another different story, but at least it was predictable.
Right.
At least we knew what was going on. And we felt confident enough that we could get away for a couple days as long as we had put all these things in place. And, just the suddenness of it, the timing of it, and the length of it just really made me feel pretty lucky about how it had been with him being stable. And it's just amazing to see how quickly that can all fall apart.
Well, and that's, what I was saying, especially these parents, I'll speak for us in general. I mean, we have gone through so many times of where things are okay, and then literally the other shoe falls, bomb drops, whatever you want to call it, and our lives get turned upside down. It could be a reaction to a medicine. It could be, I don't know what. It just seems like it is always something, and it's not a little thing. We just walk on eggshells, this tightrope. I don't know what you want to call it, but we live a life of constant stress, and we live a life of kind of looking around like, what's next?
But you get used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it.
That becomes normal. And then when something like this happens, the normal goes out the window. Because, we've always talked about taking it a day at a time. And that's still true. But then over those first 9 weeks that we were dealing with it, we weren't taking it a day at a time. We were taking it a minute at a time, an hour at a time. And just the exhale you'd have when he finally got back from the bathroom and his butt was awake because he hadn't been sitting on it and hadn't fallen asleep. And he could sit and a movie could be on. You'd be like, well, it's quiet. I've got like 2 hours where we should be okay. Well, the movie's 2 hours long. And he's not going to have to get up.
He didn't last 2 hours.
No, but at least you would just have to maybe help him move a pillow so he could put his leg back up again. It wasn't as intense as having to take him to the bathroom or helping him go to the bathroom or things like that. So even just finding those little moments was just such a load off. But yeah, it was like a hockey game penalty kill. Yeah, you're just trying to get from sun up to sundown and just get him in bed. Yeah. Luckily, the one thing that seemed to go fine was because we were very concerned that the pain would keep him up all night. But he's always been a good sleeper, and luckily that still was the case. He pretty much was able to sleep through the night without there being extensive issues. But
that was a good thing. But it was it was a beating, and we kind of got into that pity party of why is this happening, and the length of it. Come on, couldn't he have just broken his ankle where he could put a cast on it, or he could walk with the cast on and maybe be gone from his day program for a week? But 4 months. And
well, I remember when we were leaving the emergency room, and the nurse, who obviously doesn't know the extent of what we're dealing with, tried to show him, oh, here's your crutches. And, you can just use these to get around. Just don't put any away. And I remember looking at her like, you might as well be asking him to, solve the theory of relativity. Right. He's not going to be able to use those crutches.
No, because we even were like, oh, I don't know if he's going to use it. And they tried to get him up, and he just looks at him like, I don't know what to do. Where do I put it? I don't understand.
Well, and there was also that initial time while he was in shock, right?
Yeah.
Where his ankle had swollen so badly he really wasn't in pain yet. So because of his mental aptitude, I think to some degree he was like, oh, well, this isn't that bad. You know, I mean, if this is breaking your ankle, this isn't that big of a deal. Because I remember when I got there, I said, well, does it hurt? And it was like, no, not really.
Yeah, that's that shock.
Yeah. And of course, once it started hurting,
then
we got the whole, why did this happen to me? And how long will it, I mean, we were getting all the questions you would expect to get, and the anger and the frustration and the madness. It was not the way we intended to finish the year.
No. And update on him now is he is physically much, much better. He's done his physical therapy. He is running again. He's starting to play a little bit of soccer.
I'd say he's physically probably 90% back to what he was.
Yeah, we see the surgeon in August, and he'll kind of give us an update. But he told us, maybe it was that second or third visit we saw him, and I literally cried the whole way home because he said he won't be 100% for 2 years. And I was like, at the time, it had just happened. So I'm like, what do you, like 2 years of this? You know, like I had no idea. But
well, I'll be honest with you. He just started playing soccer in the last couple weeks. They have the soccer league up at My Possibilities, and we kept him out of the league, but he's been just doing the practices, which is once a week. And I'll be honest, I was surprised he was able to do that. You know, and he's gone in 3 weeks. He's gone from just kind of participating in some drills to participating in all the drills to now he's scrimmaging. So that's why I say he's 90%. I think there's probably a long way to go in that 90 to 100. But for his purposes, I think he would tell you he feels pretty much like he did before, except his ankle hurts when he's done.
yeah, it hurts, it swells.
Yeah, and he just takes a little Tylenol and he's okay. But
Right. But the big thing is we just now, like literally the last couple weeks, got him back up to his regular psych meds.
I mean, it's taken almost a year.
And that is crazy.
Yeah.
That alone is a nightmare.
Yeah.
So thankfully we have a good doctor, and you know, has helped us through all that. But he needs his medicine, and we need him to be on his medicine.
We need his medicine
to function. So then we were dealing with all that, and then what else were we dealing with?
Well, we had talked about it in a couple of our podcasts about how we were pursuing SSI benefits for Cason, and that we had been rejected.
Denied.
I like rejected better.
It is a rejection.
Yeah, it's a rejection. We had applied for it in July of 2023, and we were notified that we were denied probably about 4 to 6 months later. So we appealed, which then took another 6 months, and then we got the exact same rejection letter, and each rejection letter basically said, he's fine.
He can work. He can work 40 hours.
He could have a full-time job and take care of himself. And, you know, this was after we had visited the doctors they made us go see. We had given them all of our records.
With the first time around, we worked with the consultant who specializes in making sure you fill out the form correctly. You do everything the way you're supposed to do it. We did it.
Turns out, well, I guess we didn't need to do that because we got rejected anyway.
Yeah.
So we, after the second appeal, we were expecting to get a court date because we sought some counsel, and we said, because, you know, they don't tell you expressly why you're denied.
Right.
But we just felt like someone has checked a box or wrong or something that the judge just needs to see him. If he sees him, and that's the problem, is that, you know, this was all based on writing, right? And even the doctors we went and saw, it was just based on what they wrote down. It's not like there was any firsthand testimony for anybody at the state to make a decision with. So we were told, you'll get a notification and you can check a box if you want to do it over the phone or if you want an in-person court appointment.
Yeah.
And so we said we want it in person
Right.
because no doubt that if they saw him, they would go, someone's clearly made a mistake here. We're going to take care of this. So we checked that box, and in talking to the lawyer, I said, well, would I need a lawyer at court? And they went, no, you'd be fine. You know,
This is the consultant. I mean, consulting.
They
lawyer.
said, the consulting lawyer said, no, you'd be fine because they'll see him. They'll be like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And so I'm like, all right, I've watched Law and Order. I'll be fine. And, you know, I agreed. If you see Cason and you talk to Cason, you're going to get it.
Right.
So I'm ready, right? Well, we get our notification that our court date is January 26th of earlier this year, but we were notified that it was going to be on the phone.
Right.
So I call that lawyer back and I go, look, I'm not comfortable doing this over the phone. Can you represent him? She goes, well, I'm not taking any new cases on. So, okay. So we ended up working with a different attorney, and I explained to her
the whole situation.
Yeah, I explained the whole situation, how we'd been denied, how we feel something's wrong, and you know, I just didn't feel comfortable on the phone as I would have in person because you still can't see Cason. And she goes, okay, I understand. So, and just for anyone who's going through this, or because they don't explain any of this to you, right? If you do get in a situation where you're in the appeal process and you do want to retain a lawyer to do that, the fees are taken out of the settlement because if you appeal each time, that first date that you applied still holds as the date that it could be retroactivated to. Again, I say could and maybe and all because there are no guarantees. Yeah. But so the lawyer basically told me, I'm sure that we'll just end up taking fees out of the settlement. So because now it's going to be on the phone, you know, Cason loves to watch basketball games. But if I'm driving him home from MP and the game's already started and I turn on the radio, he just can't, it's not the same. He can't follow it the same way.
Right.
So he's visual. And so he was very concerned about being on the phone with someone he doesn't know.
We all were. Because
sure, because he has hearing, sometimes it feels like he has a hearing issue or at least a understanding of what's being said issue. He can stutter a little bit when he's nervous. So communication both ways was going to be difficult on the phone. And we don't know what they're going to ask. And Cason's not comfortable with that. So that created a situation where, okay, we got to kind of have a rehearsal here. So we met with the lawyer and
remember, Cason's still recovering from his ankle.
Right. We're still
in the midst of all that.
Yeah.
The midst of him not having all of his psych meds.
And I think by now it's the holidays or right after the holidays. So we're tired. And so we go and we have this rehearsal where we're also told only one of us can talk. And she recommended that it be me because my name was on the application
first or something. Yeah.
With the Social Security application as the guardian or representative or whatever. Yeah,
I think it was a representative, something weird, but your name was first. And so
So the safer thing to do would be that I would be the voice for us. And so I'm like, okay, well, I want to be prepared too. So we rehearsed that through. Cason was very nervous in the rehearsal because he was asking things like, well, what if I don't know the answer? And she was very good to just say, well, just say you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And she assured us that, that's actually good.
Right.
If he says he doesn't know the answer to something, that's good. So we
also were originally told that since it's a phone interview, it's all, we had to raise our right hand and all that stuff. And I'm like, that's dumb. They can't see us. So how do we know? How do they know? But we were told that Cason was going to have to be in the room by himself talking to the judge. And you and I are supposed to be outside the room. And you and I were both like, well, this is not going to go well because he's not going to understand what the judge is asking him, which is good or whatever. But it ended up being that we were able to stay in the room.
The lawyer actually kind of pointed that out, and the judge said it was okay if we stayed in the room.
Right.
So, and the other thing was, it was at 11:15, so it wasn't like it was in the middle of the day, basically. And there's this, it's not real clear from the letter how you're going to get on this call.
Right.
It's not like a conference call where you're going to dial in and there's a code and you're in.
Right.
So
She didn't
they called the lawyer first, who then circled me in.
But remember, they said it's going to be a number. It's going to be an unknown number, or it's going to have something weird on it. So make sure you answer.
Yeah,
or something.
because and I was worried about that because
Spam call.
With the new iPhone, if it's junk, it ignores the call or whatever.
Yeah.
So what we ended up doing was I did take the phone number because it was not an 888 number or something. It was like an area code, and it felt like New York or something like that. But I put that in my phone as a contact, court. And so when it rang, I was able to answer. But then I talked to the lawyer, and she was like, well, actually, I'll be calling. I said, okay, well, we'll be ready either way. So, we're all ready to go. And
So who's on the call?
it was you, me, Cason, our lawyer, the judge, and then a
Vocational
vocational representative
for the state.
for the state.
Because it's based on him being able to work.
Right, right. It's all based on his availability to work. So we went through the call, and it was, I'm sure it went faster than I think it felt like it lasted 3 hours.
It did, because Cason went first.
Yeah.
And the judge asked him the questions that our lawyer said, what is your name? He asked him his address. He knew the house number and the street, but he did not know. I think he knew.
He knew the city. He didn't know the zip code.
He didn't know the zip code. Yeah. Then they asked, did he know his phone number? He said no. Did he know his social security number? He said no. Do you drive? He said no. Pretty basic stuff. It was funny when, I don't remember the exact question, but maybe the judge had asked him, can you get from point A to point B or something? I
think he said, can you get from your house to, he asked if he could get from his house to my possibilities.
Oh, that's right.
And Cason said, well, in my car when my dad takes me.
Yeah.
My then he said, no, could you get there yourself? And he was like, no,
Yeah. He says he can't get out of the alley. Yeah. That's what he said. He was like, I can't even get out of the alley, which I was like, that's very true. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's a perfect example of why Cason needs to be on Social Security.
And there was going to be a complication because, Cason had been going through, prior to breaking his ankle, he was going through some job training stuff at MP, not necessarily to get a job. We weren't going to let him get a job until we had the Social Security stuff figured out at a minimum.
Right.
But he was going through some certification for cutting vegetable, food handling and stuff like that. He'd earned some, and he wants to get a job, And so we were concerned that when he got on there and they said, hey, could you have a job? He'd be like, oh yeah, I could have a job. Mm-hmm. Well, luckily they didn't ask that flatly. They were like, hey, could you stand for 8 hours a day? And Cason was like, well, I could, but I'd probably need a lot of breaks.
He said, I'd have to sit down.
My feet hurt. I'd probably have to sit down a lot. And so the way he answered, he basically said, no, I couldn't stand for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. They said, would you be comfortable if someone, bumped into you? He said, oh, no, I wouldn't be comfortable. So by the time we were done with all this, he basically had said he doesn't like loud noises. He can't stand. He doesn't like to be touched. He has a hard time communicating to people. He doesn't always understand what people are asking him to do. It was pretty obvious that he couldn't hold a job.
Right. So the judge then excuses him from the room, and then it's your turn.
Yeah. And then I basically was asked a different series of questions.
By the judge.
By the judge to, how would I classify Cason's ability to work? How would I classify Cason's ability to cook for himself, or all these other
Could he live independently?
Could he live independently?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. It was just no. He would, if you had asked him that, he would have said no. He has he has to be prompted to do just about everything.
And this whole time while you're talking to the judge, obviously I can't say anything and we're on speakerphone, but I am writing down as fast as I can. It's like, remember to tell him this, remember to tell him this, remember.
Because we're concerned we're not going to say everything we need to say.
Right.
It ended up being, we ended up getting through the call.
Yeah, because the interesting thing is I like that after the judge asked you the questions, then our lawyer was able to ask specific, because we obviously met with her, and she had
Well, the lawyer was basically able to cover the things we hadn't covered that the judge hadn't asked.
Right. So one of the things she talked about, which was important, where she was asking you basically if he was in a work environment, and because we had told her he's terrified of storms, and he like a raindrop, and oh no, a tornado's coming. And so she asked you if he was in a work environment and it starts to rain, would he be okay with that, or would he cause disruption? And you were like, 100%. He would be so
disruption.
He would be so focused on if a tornado's coming, and he would ask 9 million times if a tornado's coming. And then she asked again, if you're in a work environment, what would happen if the smoke alarm, or they were having a fire drill, or whatever it would be? How would he handle that? And so you had to explain that would be a nightmare, and he would never want to go back in there.
They just had the smoke alarms go off this past weekend, and it was chaos. Yeah. So yeah, all those things got covered. You know, basically the stuff, everything that we wanted to get covered was either asked by the judge in the first place, or our lawyer was able to get it into play.
And then the good part was, well, at first I was kind of frustrated about it, but when the vocational lady gets on and the judge is asking her all these questions, like our lawyer didn't get to ask her questions, the judge was asking her questions. And I was getting kind of mad about it, because she was basically, at first, the way it sounded like, she was responding to him that, yeah, he can hold a job, he could do this. And then the judge would say, how many jobs in the state of Texas? And then she was like, well, there's like 315,000 jobs that Cason could do, which is basically like washing dishes, or, you know, very minimal type jobs. And I was like looking at you, I was getting so mad, because I was like, we just went through why he couldn't.
You were very upset.
But then she changed at the end of all of that. He asked her a question about, okay, so you said there's all these jobs that Cason could have. Could he do this independently? And she said, no, he would have to have someone with him at all times.
At all times.
It's not like he could get, quote, trained on this and then you could leave him. He would need supervision all the time. And I was like, okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Not that he could do this job, but.
And I remember as I was talking to them, I was constantly like,
yeah, because I was crying. I was so upset.
Yeah,
because
you had to leave the room at one point.
I had to leave the room.
You were so frustrated. And so, again, we have another surprise coming, because, again, no one tells you how these things are going to go. Our expectation is when you go to court and there's not a jury, you know, the judge is going to render a decision at the court. Mm-hmm. So we're wrapping everything up. The advocate has said, no, he can't do a job. We put everything out there that basically says he can't take care of himself. He can't live independently. He can't, all these things. And I'm just expecting a decision. And the judge goes, okay, well, thank you all for your time.
Yeah.
And I will render my decision in the next 30 days.
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah, now we have to wait.
No, I'll be honest. Our lawyer did not tell us that might happen. Mm-mm. You know, so we were unprepared for that. And it's not that the lawyer said that hadn't happened before. It wasn't like it was a new thing. But, you know, when she got off, she said, well, you know, it can happen. So now we're pondering for the next 30 days. Okay, well, now what does this mean? And we have been told that depending on what the ruling is, parts of it are, there's no appeal.
Right.
First of all, there are 2 levels of financial support with SSI. There's the maximum, which is $994. And there's a lesser amount in the,
I think it's like
700s or something. And whichever level you get, that's it. You cannot appeal it beyond that. And then, you know, if there was a possibility that because it was a court appearance, that a denial might not be, it was harder to appeal that than it was if you just got the letter.
Yeah, she could, quote, dissent it or something.
So,
but it would
so now we're like, where is this going to go?
And at this point, I don't know if we mentioned this or not, but Cason should have been, we did talk about this, automatic.
I don't think we covered it here. We've talked about it before, but basically, if you look at the SSI requirements,
right,
he has like 4 boxes that are automatic checklists that
right.
This should be rubber stamped.
Right.
Schizophrenic. He has a low IQ.
His IQ is lower than what SSI says it needs to be to receive.
Neuromuscular,
right.
Neuromuscular issues.
Right.
So he should have been an automatic approval, but he wasn't. So now now it's the end of January. we had expected to hear something, and now we're going to wait another 30 days. So now, we get off the phone, we call the lawyer back, and we said, how did it go? Did we do good? He goes, oh, you guys did great. Cason did great. Well, did we win? Are we going to get it?
What do you think? Yeah.
And she's like, I think so. I feel really good. No, she's obviously she can't say, oh yeah, it's a slam dunk.
But she's been doing this for 25 years or something. So
But how many times have we heard that?
Right.
That just never seems to work out for us. So we get off the phone and we feel pretty good. You're still a little upset because, again, and I can understand this. And I think in the end, it probably was good that I was the one talking because, it was very personal for you. And I understand why, because they're effectively questioning
my parenting.
Your parenting.
Well, and the fact that, like I said, we both have been his parents, but I'm the one that has taken him. You've gone to a couple doctor's appointments, but
you're the primary. Yeah.
Do all of it.
Mm-hmm. You do as much as Cason has recovered. You do 90% of this.
Right. And to be questioned repeatedly, that I'm like, what really I think hurt me was the fact that I'm like, what neurotypical parent has to justify their parenting?
Well,
and that's what it felt like, where I'm like, I feel like we're being scrutinized.
Or like we're trying to hide something.
We're trying to hide something. And I'm like, it's just so frustrating because it's a slap in the face to those of us that know our kids. I'm not trying to scam the system and, I want Cason to get money. Has nothing to do with that.
And let's be honest, it's $994 a month.
Right.
It's not like you're getting rich off
No,
this.
but it is just for special needs parents. We go through a lot as it is. We deal with a lot as it is. And the fact that this has taken us almost 3 years to get in, repeatedly me having to justify, especially with making us go see their Social Security doctors.
Those were especially angry.
They were. Go back and watch those other episodes. It was horrible. And it's like you don't trust the doctors that we've been seeing. We see some of the best doctors in the area for certain things. He's in the rare disease clinic at a.
Well, it does make you feel like they're doing everything they can to not approve you.
Right.
And that's a whole different subject. But by the time we got our court date, it had been 30 months. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to wait another month. So we finally get our letter at the end of February that he has been approved and that he is retroactive back to July of 2023. Well, no, this was a question I had, right? Because if you know about Social Security, you can't qualify if you have $2,000 in any kind of asset to your name. And that doesn't include the parents. It's just them. Yeah. So if you have a savings account that has $2,100 in it, don't apply, right? So we're approved all the way back. We got approved at $994, and we got approved all the way back to July, 31 months worth. So we're talking about, $30,000. And I'm like, well, we're going to start by breaking the rules? Well, how do we, what do we do?
He can't have any money in his name. What do you do with that?
And so I remember I asked the lawyer, I said, well, can I reimburse myself for medical expenses? Because we keep all those receipts. And she was like, yeah, I think that's a possibility. Well, it turned out it's not a possibility. You can't do that. So I said, well, how does this work? Well, first of all, it's not a lump payment at the beginning. So even more degrees of frustrating. We've now waited 31 months for this support. We're going to get the $994 at the beginning of March. But that back payments is going to come in 3 installments. Not a third, but 10% within 30 days of the notification of the ruling. So end of March. From which legal fees will be pulled and then any excess will be sent on. Well, we never got a check, so we're assuming legal fees were either covered by that first payment or partially were covered. In fact, I don't even know what the legal fees were. You know, I guess I could probably reach out to the lawyer and find out. But anyway, then the next 10% will come 6 months after the ruling.
Oh,
so
right,
let's
right.
call that late August. Again, legal fees will be sent to the lawyer if there's still legal fees
right,
to
if there's
pay, and
still
then excess will be sent to us. But again, I don't really know. Then the last 80%, which is basically all of it, comes a year later. And then we have 12 months to spend it. This is where it gets really hilarious, right? So we're going to get this lump sum payment of $24,000. And we have to spend it in 12 months. We also have to spend that $994 almost down to zero every month, or
Right.
they'll say, well, you don't even need this month.
Right.
And, you know, I guess we could talk about it at a different time, but getting through $994 isn't that hard, especially with the price of groceries now, and rent agreements and all this other crap you can come up with.
You have to have a rent agreement.
Yeah,
That's a whole nother
but
thing.
I mean, so getting through $1,000, well, now suddenly I'm going to have $24,000. So on average, an extra $2,000 a month that I got to spend that too.
But we're
and-
still trying to figure out, but he can't have more than $2,000 to his name.
Right. So that's why you have a year. If at the end of the 12 months you haven't spent it, then I don't know what happens, but I sure don't want to find out. So I'm asking around if I can't reimburse myself for expenses that were incurred over this
30 months.
42-month
yeah,
period,
right.
3.5 years, if I can't reimburse myself for expenses that I might have been paying for, right? But they're like, well, you wouldn't have because you'd only gotten $994 a month. And I'm like, well, that's true, but now I've got $25,000. What am I supposed to do? Well, you know, you could buy something for his benefit, like a car.
Right.
And I thought, we don't need a car. He doesn't drive.
Right.
We already have a vehicle that accommodates him.
Right.
We don't need a car.
No.
So
We decide, I mean, we can
we're
pay his day program.
gonna end up paying his day program. You know, it'll cover.
I mean, it's not that we can't spend the money. His medical expenses and day, we
have talked about how much money this
yeah,
costs.
it's not that
That's
we
not really
can't
the
spend the
point.
money. It's the fact that Social Security makes such a big deal about he can't have this much money to his name, and it's a huge deal to go. You know, everywhere you go, they're asking you, what are his assets? What does he have?
I think the bigger problem is I don't know. We talked to a specialist. You know, they're the ones who filled out the sheets for us. Consultant. We talked to 2 lawyers, one who handled our case in court. None of this was talked about. Now, I'm not saying they didn't know. Right. I'm not saying that they deliberately withheld that from us.
No.
But,
it wasn't
but
that.
the point is, I'm not sure that it doesn't change all the time. The point is, there's just no way to know what you're getting into. First of all, if you get rejected, they don't tell you why. You're just supposed to appeal. And when we filled out the paperwork again, we just elaborated on what we had already written.
Because you have to start all the way over. It's
Right.
it's not like they send you back your mountain of paperwork
Right.
to like adjust. It's like start all the way over. So we had to, do all of that. And like you said, yeah, they don't explain why. They don't say, oh, we think, I don't even know what they would say.
They don't explain much about how the appeals process works. They don't explain why when you request an in-person court date and you don't get one,
what the reasoning
what you're
is.
supposed to do.
Yeah.
They don't tell you that if you do get a retroactive decision, how you're going to get it, when you're going to get it, how you're supposed to spend it.
Right.
It's all very much, it feels like it's all very set up for you to trip on something.
Yes.
And
yes.
And we've been hearing a lot about, families at MP who have lost their benefits because for just reasons that they didn't even know about. Someone got a W-2 and thought they had a full-time job.
Or somebody at the Social Security office messed up something. And so then they're like, oh, well, sorry. And then they won't put them back. I mean, it should not be this hard.
No, it
because it makes me think of all these families out there that might not have the resources to hire a consultant and a lawyer to do this, and they have to do all of this on their own. They don't have the information. They don't have the help. It's just wrong. And
it's part of the reason why we wanted to talk about it.
Right.
Because, I certainly can't say that we have the textbook on how to get this done now.
no, we don't.
But at least we're saying, hey, we can prepare you for some things, and here's some advice that we got. And,
Because this Cason's SSI comes with Medicaid, which is
and we want to touch on that briefly.
yeah.
So you're given an option of 3 companies to choose from to be your representative or whatever. So I choose one. So we get on and I'm going to go, it says, well, you need to, it's like being on an HMO, right? You have to go get a primary care physician. And then once you have that, there's other benefits you can get. And so we're thinking, oh, well, maybe this will offset some of our things. But, we're pretty sure there's a lot of doctors we're not going to pull away from. And we know they don't accept Medicare, but Medicaid. But maybe because I was told there might be some reimbursements that could be done. Well, I started digging into it. I go to the website, just like any other website for any other insurance company, where you can search based on your city. You're looking
zip code,
you're looking for a primary care physician. I spent hours looking into, I would say 100 doctors or nurse practitioners that were supposedly in my area.
Yeah.
One was literally across the street.
You drove over.
Across from the Studio Movie Grill.
Yep.
And I was like, boy, I don't remember seeing that. Well, I'll just drive over there. And sure enough, I drive over there and it's just an empty office. Mm-hmm. And so I called back the company and I said, look, I'm really having a hard time finding a primary care physician because your portal says they're in Plano, but when I Google them, they're find out they're in
Grapevine or
Kansas City.
Yeah, they're
not even in Texas. Or they're in Waco, or they're in Houston.
Far away, yeah.
Or Fort Worth or Weatherford, but they're not in Plano. The closest I got, and it said it was a primary care physician, there were some that were listed in this building.
Yep.
And I, of course, walked over there, and it's a cardiologist. They don't have anybody there. So
I don't know what we're supposed to do. We kind of gave up on that for the moment.
Well, here's where we landed. Here's where we landed with our Medicaid benefits. Here's what it looks like he can actually benefit from. Vision. We can take him to a Vision Works and he can get a eye exam and he can get
his glasses.
$100 credit toward a pair of glasses there. And that is covered by Molina Healthcare, because anything else that we would do would require us to have this primary care physician, which we cannot find.
They have paid for a couple of his medicines that our insurance doesn't cover. But as we found out, the majority of doctors and dentists and eye doctors and whatever do not take Medicaid.
Yeah.
They do not take it.
Now, vision, there was a lot more. Vision, you're not required to go see a OD. You can literally just go to
right. But the eye doctor we have been seeing for him
doesn't take it.
So that's what I'm saying. And again, we're dealing with a person who is intellectually disabled, who is very leery of who they go see. We have built relationships with these doctors. They know him. They know what to do. So it's not like we can just take him to some random person in Fort Worth and be like, look at him. I mean, none of it makes sense.
None of it makes sense because you definitely want to have it as a safety net if everything goes wrong, I guess. But it's not easy. It's not easy to get. It's not easy to use. It's really hard to use because let me put it this way, to your point, if you don't have your own private insurance, well, and I will tell you straight up, Molina said that Medicaid is secondary insurance.
Right.
It is not intended to be primary insurance. But if that's all you have,
you're in trouble.
I mean,
mean,
if you can find a doctor, I would almost say I wouldn't even worry. I would say you would be lucky if you could find one, much less you could find one that you liked or that was great with, the patient or whatever. I mean, I
They're few and
looked
far
into
between.
100 and there weren't even options. The one I was able to get a hold of that they said was a primary care physician ended up being a psychologist who, couldn't provide all the services that we needed the primary care physician to provide.
Right.
So
it just doesn't make any sense.
no. And so essentially when I ended up talking back to Melina, what they said was, well, not all of our partners update their information. I thought, well, I would think that's your job, but it almost makes me wonder, well, do they even accept you anymore? Or did they move on and they're just not even worried about it anymore? I don't know. I think that it speaks to everything else about the level of effort that appears to be put into these programs, and that's minimal, onus. We make a mistake, onus is on you to fix it. Oh, sorry, if there are costs, you'll have to figure that out. Or, just even if you take into account that Cason was retroactivated back to July of 2023, still doesn't change the fact that a big chunk of it was taken for legal fees.
Right.
We shouldn't have had to hire a lawyer to do.
Yeah.
Right.
It should have gone to him to begin with because they made the mistake. It wasn't on us.
Yeah.
Twice they made the mistake.
Yeah. So I guess we've spent the last however long we've been talking, catching you up on what's been going on, doing a little bitching.
Yeah.
Talking about a system that's broken, like we all don't know that. But
we're saying all this to say that the last 10 months have been quite stressful. Hopefully, knock on some wood, we're on the other side of that.
We intend to be back on our schedule, starting now. And so one of the things that we definitely wanted to come on and catch everybody up, let everyone know we've been going on to, and hopefully, provide someone with some anecdotal information about Social Security if it helps.
Or they can have a bitch fest.
Or they can, if you want to bitch, put some statements out there. One of the things that I will say is, though, even though we hadn't been putting out new episodes, we have continued to put reels out there. And we've had a couple of reels here in the last couple months that really seem to strike a chord with people. And it's kind of introduced some topics that I think we're going to bring back. And so that's going to be our next episode. We're gonna talk about a particular reel that we put out in the last 30 days that got, on Instagram at least, in excess of 160,000 views. And it was on the topic of maintaining a marriage, essentially, in situations like ours. So a lot of comments, 350 comments on this. So a lot of different points of view. And we're going to talk about that next week. So hope you'll join us then. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kim.
And we're back. Specialness. Thanks for joining us.